We're going to be talking about privacy and security this week, and you have two introduction videos this week. You have this video, and then you have the one right after this. And the reason you have two introduction videos is because I just got finished recording all of the privacy and security lectures, and I realized when I got to the end of it that it'd be really nice for you to have a summary of everything we're going to talk about before we actually talk about it. Because when we talk about privacy and security, it's not as neatly defined as some of the more technical terms, where we have just this one little thing. And I found that after recording all the privacy and security lectures, I was just sort of talking about a lot of, philosophizing and different perspectives, and that I really need to bring everything into a more concise way so that you can get a really quick overview of what's going on in the privacy and security arena, and how that impacts you and what you could do to keep yourself safe, right? Because once you kind of become aware of what's going on, how do you respond to what's going on? And so I want to give this quick overview of privacy and security. So first of all, there's a trade-off between privacy and security, right? We could have more security, but we would get that at the expense of privacy. Or we could have more privacy, but that would be at the expense of security. And there's this inverse relationship between privacy and security. So we could have ultimate security, but we're going to have zero privacy. So if everybody in the world was tracked at all times and we recorded where they were and what they were saying and what they were doing at all times, we would have zero privacy, but we'd know if like a bank got robbed, we would know who did it because everybody's being recorded and tracked. So we'd have no privacy and we'd have high security. Likewise, if we have total privacy, we would have much less security. So if we didn't know anything about anyone, we kept no records on anyone, we had no surveillance cameras, right? We had no driver's license, no license plates, right? Already you can see security is going down, but privacy has gone up. So there's this interplay between privacy and security. That's the first thing you need to know. The second thing you need to know is that we have the Fourth Amendment, and the Fourth Amendment prohibits unreasonable searches, and this is part of the Constitution. From Wikipedia, it says, the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution is part of the Bill of Rights that prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures and requires any warrant to be judicially sanctioned and supported by probable cause. And the reason that this is really important when we're talking about privacy and security is that it is a constitutional right. This is what it means to be American, to be able to have, right, a right to privacy, to not have unreasonable searches and seizures. And if there is going to be a search and a seizure, that a warrant has to be judicially sanctioned by the judicial system, by a judge, and it has to be supported by probable cause, right? So we have this history in America that we support privacy, and yet a lot of the stuff which is occurring actually seems like it might be violating the Fourth Amendment and our constitutional rights as Americans. And so it's just an interesting arena, what's going on. And again, it's balancing this trade-off between privacy and security. Right? So you might be wondering, what is the Bill of Rights? And the Bill of Rights is just a collective name for the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution. So you might be wondering, how does the Bill of Rights relate to the United States Constitution? So a few things you should be aware of. Email is not private. Email is not private. Anytime you send an email, just assume it's like writing on an open chalkboard somewhere, and anybody could read it if they want to. So email is not private. Obviously, it would be difficult for your neighbor to read your email. That's going to be difficult for your neighbor to do it. However, if your neighbor really put themselves to the task, they could probably figure out a way to read your email. And not only might your neighbor, read your email if your neighbor is so inclined, but there's many different levels along the line where people might be reading your email if they were so inclined. And so anyhow, the United States government, some people speculate, and there's actually evidence out there to support that the United States government is monitoring all internet traffic and, paying attention to all this stuff and scanning it and reading it. And again, some of this stuff sounds absolutely crazy to say, right? And so, it's not like something that's really readily disclosed. And so it's not like the United States government says, we have a policy to read everybody's email. Yet some of the information that comes out says, it looks like they might be doing that. Right? And to what extent? Is it everybody or is it just a few people? Right? So it's just not totally clear, which is part of what privacy and security talking about, what makes it hard. So email is not private. Just make that assumption anytime you use email. Cell phone use is not private. Just make that assumption anytime you use a cell phone. Wiretaps, right? In the past, wiretaps, you needed a warrant to get a wiretap. That was for wires. Cell phones are wireless. and that wireless data is just beaming through the air. And so many, I've heard before that data is fair game to grab, and you don't need a warrant for that. So email is not private, cell phone use is not private, computers at public locations are not private, right? So anytime you're at a library or at school, not private. You could just assume that the people who run whatever computer you're using, they have the ability to monitor it and actually see in real time whatever you're doing. It's the same way at work. Anytime you're at work, just assume that whatever you're doing, that your boss can be watching you at that very moment, whatever you're doing on the computer. So computers at public locations and at work are not private. Next thing you need to know when talking about privacy and security is there's a couple of acronyms for government agencies. There's the NSA, FBI, CIA, and there used to be the IAO. And the NSA stands for the National Security Administration. Wow, I'm having a moment of doubt. National Security Administration. There we go. National Security Administration. NSA, National Security Administration. FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Central Intelligence Agency. Information Awareness Office is what this agency used to be called. It's no longer funded, however, and the Information Awareness Office's goal was to gather data about everybody. That was their goal, in my words. Following public criticism to the development and deployment of this technology, potentially the mass surveillance system, the AIO was defunded by Congress in 2003. However, several IAO projects continue to be funded and merely run under different names, as revealed by Edward Snowden during the course of 2013 mass surveillance disclosures. So one of the things we're going to learn about this week when you watch the rest of these lectures is you're going to learn about Edward Snowden and how he was a whistleblower and how he's wanted by the United States government for treason, and how he was working for the United States government as a contractor. And he realized that what the United States government is doing, he felt like it really violated our rights as Americans. And he said, you know what, Americans need to know about this. So he grabbed a whole bunch of documents and he headed for Hong Kong. And then he released some of the documents and he took off for Russia. And so, you know, a lot of the information that's come out has been like, wow, look at what the government's doing. That's a little bit crazy. And so that's still all unfolding, but you're going to learn more about this week. All right. So what is the 2013 mass surveillance disclosure, which Edward Snowden released? Snowden. After the 2013 mass surveillance disclosures refer to numerous media reports beginning in June 2013, which revealed operational details of the U.S. National Security Agency and its international partners' mass surveillance of foreign nationals as well as U.S. citizens. Now you can pause this video and you can read the rest of this description right here, but foreign nationals as well as U.S. citizens. And recently there's been a lot of information in the news about other governments and the leaders of those governments being pissed off at America because we were like reading their private email and listening to their cell phone conversations. The president of Mexico, the president of France, you know, all these different countries are like, what the hell? And if you go to this Wikipedia page for the 2013 mass surveillance disclosures, you can see some of the topics that are covered there. Origins of clandestine surveillance in the United States, mass surveillance in a global context, 1940 to 2001. 9/11 and its implications on mass surveillance. So that was like when the buildings in New York got hit by the planes. Acceleration of media leaks. Summary of revealed surveillance details, purposes, targets, international cooperation methods. Infiltration of smartphones, mastering the internet, surveillance drones. So some really interesting stuff at that Wikipedia page. Again, this is a summary overview, but this is a great resource to go read about some of this stuff that's going on with surveillance in the United States. And something else you should be aware of when we're talking about privacy and security is that there's this website, WikiLeaks. And WikiLeaks is where anybody working for anyone, if they get documents that they feel are sensitive and that the world should know about it, they can give them to this website. And WikiLeaks helps publish them and lets the world know about, hey, look at these documents which are leaked to us by an anonymous source. All right. Next thing you need to know about privacy and security is this concept of public publishing. Public publishing is publishing by anybody in the public, right? So not only is the government potentially, and increasingly it looks like for sure, has this massive surveillance system of who knows totally who, where does the line end, where does surveillance end? Right? Not only is the government kind of watching what's going on, but everybody's watching what's going on. And you know, you're going to go to work for an employer, and the employer's going to be like, okay, who are you? Let's Google you. Let's see what we find out. Right? Well, how much can they find out? Well, that depends upon how much is out there about you. How much have you published about yourself, right? How much have you publicly published? And how much have others published about you? Because as we all probably know at this point, you know, what happens on Facebook doesn't just stay on Facebook. Like what happens when it gets onto Facebook, it goes everywhere. And it could be you that publishes that stuff on Facebook, or it could be somebody else who took a picture of you and tagged you and said, look at what this guy's doing, look at what this girl's doing. And then it's out there and everybody knows about it. So that's public publishing. It's another place in the privacy security thing where we have lost some privacy, and you could be recorded or a picture of you could be taken at any moment. And yeah, so that's public publishing. There are also public records, which in talking about privacy and security, you need to know about this because you don't have privacy when it comes to some public records like birth records, marital records, marriages and divorces, criminal records, court records, or again, you know, criminal records. Megan's Law, which in California is a database of sexual offenders, which you can go and search, and you can find out what sexual offenders are living in your neighborhood by searching for your house, and it'll show you the sexual offenders that are living around you. So all that, those public records are public. And if you ever have, you know, if you're ever born, if you die, if you have a marriage or a divorce, or if you end up in court, right, all that stuff goes out there into the public. And so when people do background checks on you, like a future employer does a background check on you, they'll be looking to see, hey, what kind of stuff's out there on the internet about you, and what kind of public records are out there about you, just to find out a little bit more who they're going to be hiring. The next thing you need to know, right, is corporate records. Oh, the breadcrumbs you leave. Oh, the breadcrumbs you leave. Because corporate records capture a ton of data about you. So corporate records include anything that's ever been published to Facebook, right? That's all owned by Facebook. It's owned by you, but Facebook has the license, the right to use it now and into all eternity, however the hell they want, and to make money from it if they want. That's pretty much what their license says. And, you know, it's not only Facebook, but it's Google, right? You sign into your Google account, Google knows what you've been looking at. Google knows where you've been going. Google knows what you've been doing. And that really helps Google sell advertising. And, you know, that's really what Google does. It helps Google give you better search results, right? And so, you know, you're leaving breadcrumbs everywhere. You use a credit card, guess what? The credit card company knows everything you're buying on that credit card, right? You use a cell phone, the cell phone company knows everybody you've been calling, and it knows where you have been. The cell phones track you. There's GPS tracking devices in every cell phone by law, which tells the cell phone company where you're at any given moment. And so one of the resources we're going to look at this week is a TED Talk where a guy talks about, you know, a guy talks about, see, we got a lot of resources to look at here. Your phone company is watching, right? So that's a really fantastic resource. We're going to be watching that TED Talk today about a guy who went into that. So, you know, all that information's out there. And when you go to work for a company, or if you end up hiring people, you could use a website like Intellius, which will do background checks and take all that information and provide it to you. So there's this idea that and then also, right, you got to be careful, the Facebook fails. So if you just go to Google and search for Facebook fail, you'll get all these fails of people who posted stuff where, you know, or got posted about them where it's just like, well, that's not going to reflect so well if you're going to look for a job and an employer is doing a background check on you. So there's this idea that Big Brother is watching you, but it's not only Big Brother. And Big Brother traditionally is the government. It's also the corporations. It's also, you know, employers. It's also everybody else in the world who might be interested can find information about you. So Big Brother, along with many others, is watching you. And it's becoming increasingly interesting as facial recognition moves into a new era. And we're going to watch another TED Talk, Alessandro Acquisiti, Why Privacy Matters. And it's really pretty fascinating what he's done with facial recognition technology, to the point where he could just stand and take a picture of people, and I think 1/3 or 2/3 of the time he could instantly like find out all this information about them, including their social security number. And so, you know, he said, where is this going? Well, studies show that when a friend recommends something to us, we're like so much more percentage-wise willing to buy that thing. And so facial recognition, if the company knows who you are, they could scan you, right? Oh, this person's here. They could go to your Facebook profile, take 2 of your most popular friends, merge their faces together digitally, right? And then you wouldn't recognize as either one of your friends, but on an unconscious level, you'd have that feeling of familiarity. And when they do this, they've tested it, it increases sales tremendously. So eventually you're going to have merged profiles of your friends, which you won't recognize as your friends. And they'll be like saying, they'll be the ones in the commercials selling you stuff. And you're going to be that much more manipulated and controlled. So it's really kind of evil and pernicious in some ways, right? Like the way they're using this stuff, or could be using it. So, Big Brother watching us along with others, and facial recognition technology is really moving us into a new era, and we're not totally sure what the shakeout of that's going to be. You got to be careful what kind of information's out there, and be circumspect and be aware, of where you lose information. There's a classic case of like the Star Wars kid who had some information put out there about him when he was young, which he, didn't want to have out there, and it became a viral video. So you could read about this if you want right here, or Google it, and there's a lot of cases like that. So why do you want to be careful? The question you want to ask yourself is, who has the information, and what are they going to do with it? So here you see a really disturbing picture of some sort of a soldier shooting, looks like a mother with her child. And why on earth would anybody do that? What would, bring a human being to do this to another human being? And this is a picture when I Googled Nazi and Jewish, this is one of the pictures that came up. And so during the 1940s and World War II, it was really bad if, you were Jewish. And so the Germans at that time, a lot of them, or some of them, the ones in power with the guns, decided we need to get rid of the Jewish people. And so they started doing some ethnic cleansing, and there was a genocide, right? The Holocaust. And so who has the information? What are they going to do with it? At that point in time, it would have been pretty bad if, everybody knew you're Jewish. And if you could have hidden that information when you're in Germany and snuck out or something, but hidden the fact that you're Jewish, that would have been in your best interest in terms of physical survival. I don't know about the spiritual realm in that regard, but horrible. So the question you got to ask yourself is, who has the information? What are they going to do with it? Because there's all kinds of privacy and security, and all of this information is being gathered now. Where are we losing the information, and who has it, and what's going to be done with it? And so this is the most extreme case, right? Like, oh, we're going to target people and we're going to get rid of them. That's the most extreme case. You might think, well, that happened in isolated incidents. But actually, if you go to Wikipedia and you search for genocide, human history is littered with horrible examples of humans treating each other horribly. And that doesn't mean that there aren't millions and billions of examples of humans treating each other wonderfully, but there's also a tremendous amount of examples of humans treating each other horribly. And so humans have a long history of being real assholes to one another and really hurtful and harmful to one another. So who has the information? What are they going to do with it, right? That's the question. And again, in America, we had the Japanese-American internment camps where we basically rounded up all the Japanese people during World War II, or a lot of them, and put them into camps and took away their property. So that's, if you're Japanese in America in that time period, that's where that information would have been used against you. We also had McCarthyism, which was like in the 50s, and is the practice of making accusations of disloyalty, subversion, or treason without proper regard for evidence. And that was sort of an inquisition period. Are you a socialist? Are you a communist? Right, in America's history. So you want to protect yourself. And so I'm going to go over some of the ways you can protect yourself in this brave new world, this new era, where we've really gained a method of finding out a lot about people really quickly, where privacy is kind of like just evaporating. So how do you protect yourself? You want to be circumspect, and you want to be aware of what you share. What does that mean? You want to be circumspect. So be circumspect about what you share. You're at a party, you've had a couple of drinks, might not be a good idea to strip down and go diving in the pool, right? Because somebody might have their iPhone and record you and put it on YouTube, and then that's a viral video. Watch this drunk fool getting naked and diving in the pool. Even kind of sounds good. So you just want to be circumspect. You want to keep your head about you, because now your mistakes could be recorded for all posterity's sake. And I seem to have the rhymes going on. Your mistakes could be recorded for all posterity's sake, and then that could come back to haunt you if you're going for a job, or if the people in control decide we need to get rid of everybody who is this way, who is that way. So you also want to be aware of what you share. So not only be circumspect of how you conduct yourself in places where you could be recorded, security cameras, other people's cameras, you also want to be aware of what you share, posting to Facebook and things like that. You want to have good passwords. I'm going to talk about how you create good passwords. Basically, they are long passwords with crazy characters, right? Like that would be a good password. It's just long and crazy. It makes no sense, right? And so you type that in, good passwords. You want to have good passwords. You want to monitor your accounts, and you want to shred sensitive info. So you want to be looking at your accounts at least monthly to make sure that they are A-OK, your bank accounts, your credit card accounts, whatever. And anytime you get stuff in the mail, statements, things like that, you want to make sure you shred them. You also don't want to place into your mailbox any critical information, credit card bills and things like that, because somebody could come by and just pull that out of your mailbox. So yeah, protect yourself. Monitor your account, shred sensitive info. You want to think twice before sharing your social security number, your mother's maiden name, your driver's license number, your birthday, account numbers, even your address or your phone number. Think twice about that, or even your email address. And you'll notice when you become aware of this, how people, corporations want to grab this info. You go, I was in Williams-Sonoma, and they're like, you want this gift wrap? I was like, yeah, sure. Okay, could you please give us your email address? Why do you need my email address to gift wrap, gift this? Oh, well, you know, it's that will be your claim number when you come back in. You'll just tell us your email, and that's how we bring it up. Okay, well, you know, and then they were like, would you like the 10% discount? I think I got it wrong, but then they got my zip, and like before I know it, they had my zip code, my phone, and my email address, just because they had this little system where you give me this, I'll give you that. You give me, you know, we'll give you gift wrapping, but you have to give us this, right? So you just watch where you start losing that stuff. Never click a link in an email. That's another way you protect yourself. You get emails with links, never click them. When I email friends, I have started doing something like, hey, check this out. And by the way, you know, this is from me, because last night, you know, I was singing this song on the guitar and we were all sitting around laughing. Oh, okay, that's from Todd. He just proved it with that extra little comment. But otherwise, if you get an email from your bank, if you get an email from PayPal and says click this link, never click the link. Never click the link in the email. Don't trust strangers, right? Somebody calls and says they're from your bank. Really? You're from my bank? Let me call you back. What's your number? Right? And then they'll give you their number and their name. And you go look, don't call that number. Go look up your bank's number and call your bank's number and say, hey, you know, this person just called me. What's up? You want to keep your operating system updated, and you want to make sure you have antivirus software. You want to use a good browser. Don't use Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer, Microsoft is kind of crap. That's my opinion. Google Chrome's good. Firefox is good. Yeah, Safari's fine, probably, but I'd stay away from Internet Explorer. So Chrome, Firefox, Safari, fine. You want to be careful with USB drives. This is how a lot of viruses get into places. They come in on USB drives. So just be careful with USB drives. If you've been using them at other computers, before you bring them home, and when you stick them into your computer, make sure the first thing you do is use your antivirus software to scan your USB drive for viruses. You only want to enter critical information on trusted computers. So if I'm at school, if I'm at the library, I don't want to type in my passwords on those computers. So don't do it. Have a junk account, you know, for using at public locations if you do need to log in somewhere. But don't enter your critical information. Don't log into your bank. Don't log into your main email account at public locations. Be careful of what you install. Don't download stuff and install it from the internet unless you trust where you're getting it from. I'll install things from Adobe. I'll install things from Apple. I'll install things from download.com, which is run by CNET. Sometimes. That's. I'll install things from Microsoft. I won't install things from discountsoftware.com or whatever, right? Or websites I don't know. Amazon, yeah. So trusted websites only. Be careful what you install. Use Gmail. Gmail, Google is really industry leader in terms of security and you know, programming, and they're the new emperor on the block when it comes to, they're the new digital emperor on the block when it comes to coding. Yahoo is notorious for viruses and spam. Don't use Yahoo. Use Gmail. Gmail is a much better email client. It's much more secure, and it's just going to be better for you. So yeah, there you go. Use Mac or Linux. So some of these things are just recommendations. I am using Windows right now, but in the perfect world, Mac and Linux are more secure than Windows. So that's a way that you could secure yourself even more. And if I'm on a Mac, I don't need antivirus software. And if I'm on Linux, the verdict is out, but Linux is fairly similar to the Mac OS, and I've seen stuff both ways on do you need antivirus software for Linux. You want to make sure you back up important data. So that's the other thing you could do to protect yourself. So if you lose all of your data, you have a backup of it, and anytime you get rid of a computer, you want to make sure you physically destroy the drives within the computer. Destroy drives when done with them. So all that said about privacy and security and protecting your privacy, you might think, wow, it's a freaky new world. You got to be super careful. Don't share anything. And quite to the contrary, despite everything I just shared with you, I'm somebody who's like shared a ton of information online. And this could negatively come back and impact me if I want to go for a job. And I think it has impacted me before. There have been things where I've applied for stuff or something, and then I'm like, why didn't I get that? And it's like, well, maybe people looked at some of the stuff I have online. And, I used to be like, whatever, life, my life's an open book. I have nothing to hide. And I really enjoyed making videos. And I make videos about computer stuff, and I make videos while traveling. And so I just went through this phase where I was like, this is awesome. You can make videos and put them up online. And I made tons and tons of videos, and hundreds of thousands of people have watched them. So I've got a ton of information out there. And who knows? If I ran for president, a lot of people would be looking at these videos, right? And they'd be like, what is up with this person? So it's a little overview of privacy and security. It's a big topic. There's a lot of interesting stuff to think about. I covered the essential points in this video, but you're going to learn some amazing things just going over things in more detail as we go through the information this week. And you're going to see a lot of fantastic resources just to elucidate this environment of security and privacy and where we find ourselves now and kind of what's going on. So I hope you enjoy this week. It's fantastic stuff. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it. And well, I would make a joke like I'm going to be watching to see if you watch everything, but I'm not. That's my joke. All right, privacy and security.